welcome to another interview. I'm privileged today to be speaking to Rusty Labuschagne, the author of Beating Chains, and we greatly look forward to asking him questions and learning more about his journey over the past few decades. Rusty, welcome to Embassy Direct. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah. Rusty, we would like to know some questions about your experience. Obviously, our viewers and our readers may or may not know your story. And if we could start off with telling us about what the most challenging thing you had to deal with about going into prison. What was the challenge?
Ron, I think the hardest thing to deal with was going from somebody. So initially, I started with nothing, worked like crazy to build a big empire, falsely accused, spent 10 years in prison, lost everything, and having your confidence and everything like smashed, and then having to climb again. No matter who you are and how confident you were before, to pick that up is tough. So the hardest thing for me to deal with was going from flying high, bulletproof, lots of money, to rock bottom. When you go into prison, they crush you. They crush your soul, your spirit, everything, and especially your confidence. And for me, that was the hardest, the humiliation of being somebody substantial. I mean, I was donating to charities, old age homes and orphanages. I was somebody in society. I wasn't just and it's very different when you're going from somebody who's flying in his own aircraft to somebody that's sleeping on the floor, So the conditions in the prison, I'll explain later, but they were tough and they were really hard. And then there's no entertainment in there. So to get used to that, Ron, there's no TVs, radios, nothing. So the only entertainment you have is hardcore armed robbers telling story after story of how to break into different cars, houses, what gangs to join, where to buy guns, where to sell the merchandise. And that goes on 24/7, year after training year. It's tough to get used to. So that was hard for me as well. And then when you go to prison as an innocent man, Ron, the first question you say is, why me? What have I ever done to deserve this? And then when you're in there, I remember saying to myself, do these guys feel the pain I'm feeling? Am I different to everyone here? And then I thought, maybe I'm being put up to be protected. I was dealing with, big time guys, and a lot of white farmers are getting killed and stuff. So it was during the land seizure turmoil in Zimbabwe in 2000. So it was wild and rough. The injustice was crazy. And then I thought, I always told my kids, everything happens for a reason. And I thought maybe I've been put there for a purpose, for a reason. So I had to walk my talk now and believe that there was a reason for this, which is really hard when you're an innocent man sleeping on the floor with being bitten by lice. And it was hectic. So I think those were the most challenging for me, Ron. Yeah.
In prison, which part of it was the hardest to get used to? You mentioned a few different aspects. Was there a part that stood out as the hardest part to get used to?
Ron, the hardest physical part, those I mentioned to you are more emotional. The physical part was we shared a cell. The cells were 13 meters by 3 meters. We were 78 guys. So everyone got 33 centimeters of space marked out on the walls in chalk, and that was your space. We were packed like sardines with legs all crossing over in the middle. And we all faced the same direction. When you turned over, you all turned over together. So, and sleeping on the floor, Ron, if you've ever tried sleeping on a floor for just 10 minutes, your hip bones burn from the pressure and shoulders ache within minutes. I spent 8 years on a cold concrete floor. There's no beds, tables, chairs, cupboards, nothing in a prison in Zimbabwe. Nothing like that. You sleep on the floor. And the coldness is from the bottom. It's not, and we only got 3 worn out lice-ridden blankets each. And so you had to fold 2 of them to fit your space, and then for cushioning. And then you lay on that and cover yourself with the third one. But the cold went through the blankets. and it was freezing. I mean, there's nothing to keep a prison warm. It's just concrete and steel. And then the lice run. I mean, they just bit you day and night. And I never knew what lice were until I went to prison. And there are thousands of them, and they bite you day and night. And that is draining, both mentally and physically. And then we were only allowed one set of clothing at any one time. So we had to wash our clothes because there are no basins or taps in the cells, just the toilet in the corner. And it's just a cement block with a stainless steel bowl in there. And we had to wash our clothes in the cell toilets at night wearing a blanket, and then hang them on the walls with smuggled book staples to dry by the next morning. So that was obviously for anybody. I mean, imagine washing your clothes in your toilet at home, even the sparkling clean toilet, and then having to wear them the very next day. So the humiliation was beyond comprehension of all that living like it's incomprehensible. And you just think, what am I going through here? And then in 2005, Harare City ran out of water. For 3 years, in Chigurubi Maximum Security Prison, each prisoner was allocated only 1 plastic cup of water a day. 1 cup of dirty orange city runoff water from a nearby dam carried by farm prisoners. That was to drink, clean your teeth, wash your face, bath, everything for 3 years. It was unbelievable. And some guys didn't bath for 9 months. The only time they bathed was when it rained. Within our 4 hours out of cells, we were locked up for 20 hours a day. 4 hours out of cells, if it was raining, then you'd jump into the exercise yard and enjoy a thorough scrub. So, and then, Ron, I'm a very affectionate guy. And not being able to give anyone a wholesome hug for 8 years, that was tough. You know, my last 2 years I spent in an open prison. And the conditions there were you could go home for 5 days and 30 days in prison. 5 days at home, 30 days in. There were just 100 carefully selected prisoners that ran a farm for the prison service. And that there's all on trust. There's no bars, fences, nothing. And that was one of the privileges. That was a godsend for me. So then I got my first cuddle from my daughter. Yeah, it was hectic. And then seeing color and long distance. There's no color. It's just walls, either white or cement color. And that's all you see for year after year. And it's hard to explain to anyone to appreciate those little things that we don't appreciate, you know, like touching my first tree after 6.5 years, taking a swim after 8.5 years at the farm dam. And by the way, you never forget how to swim. It was such a feeling. And I said to the guards, I actually made the prison squad to go and play soccer on one of their soccer grounds. It was the prison squad versus the officer side. And we were escorted over to the soccer ground. And on my way, all walking in formation with guards, I asked an officer if I could touch my first tree in 6.5 years. And he looked at me like I was crazy. You know? And then you have no idea how beautiful and uplifting it felt just to touch a tree and feel green grass again. It was amazing. And then the cold showers run. You know, I don't do cold water very well. And in winter, in Chigurubi, when there was water, it was freezing, like you can't believe it. You know, when it hit you on the head, just an instant headache. And if you wanted to shower and keep clean, they were cold. You know, the whole 10 years, it was cold water. So I appreciate a hot bath or a warm shower now. And then, Ron, for my first 6 years, I watched over 2,200 people die in prison. It was during the Zimbabwe dollar crash, when there was no food outside of prison, never mind in there. And then we had a cholera outbreak. And I remember in Harare Central Prison, in 8 months, in 2008 and 9, out of 1,200 of prisoners, 432 died. That's more than 1/3 of us in 8 months. It was horrific. And I've never seen people dying, you know, like that. So, well, not like that ever. My mom died when I was there, but normal people, you know, just playing cards on the tarred floor of the crowded exercise yard one day, and the guy sitting next to me rolled over dead. And no one around us moved. It was like, come take him away, there's another one. It was unbelievable. And 2,200 people that I saw. And that stays with you. And it gives you a sense of, we don't value empathy enough. And I think there's a big lesson to be learned. It's part of my motivational speaker now. So one of the big lessons is teaching people about empathy. We don't care enough about what's going on everywhere else. We're too busy worrying about building ourselves, you know. And it's a big lesson for me in that. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit. But I think those were the toughest things for me, Ron, now.
Rusty, if you had to replay your experience, knowing that what you were going to go through, what was to come, what would you do differently? Is there anything that you would have done differently?
Okay, Ron, the first thing is I was told I was going to prison before I went to prison. A political connection of mine phoned me and he said, Russ, get out of the country, but you're going to prison. And it's like me saying to you, Ron, but get out, because you're going inside, you leave your family, you leave everything you've worked your whole life for, and you never come back. You'll be chased the whole time, and you're guilty. And I think the biggest lesson for me there, Ron, is your reputation. Because it takes years and years to build your reputation up. And I still have mine. Yeah. And if I'd run, I would have been, oh yeah. So for me, I wouldn't change anything. And it was tough. You know, when I explain more and more later as we go, you'll see, even though I've got all that I had to go through in my mind, I wouldn't run. And the lesson there is, remain who you are. Stand up for yourself. It doesn't matter what you're going to go through. And that's a powerful thing. And then you look at the big picture in life, Ron. So I was a big fish in a little pond, like a hamster on a wheel, and round in Zim, you know. And now I'm a little fish in a big wide ocean, making a difference and changing lives. And for me, the feedback and feeling I get of making that difference and everything is worth a whole lot more than the millions I was making before. And that I just feel I have a calling now. I have a purpose, you know. Yeah. And that just feels so good.
So that's amazing. So there would be no change you wouldn't have made.
No, Ron.
Rusty, did you make any real friends in there that you still keep in touch with to this day?
I do, and I did. So you make friends as you go, and you make a lot of mistakes in prison by befriending the wrong people. But the two guys I keep in touch with a lot. The one guy was Moyo. Now, when you go into prison, almost everybody's got some agenda, and it's full of stubborn, criminal-minded gangsters. You know, not everybody, but generally, you must know you're in prison. You're not in some supermarket. And whoever you talk to, just be aware who you're talking to. And everyone's innocent in prison. So, except this guy Moyo. And when I started talking to Moyo, I knew within a few minutes that what you see is what you get. And he was from the safari industry, where I was from Bulawayo. And it was about last September, I got a phone call from the guy that Moyo used to work for. Now, Moyo spent 4.5 years in Chikurubi Max with me. And the guy phoned me and said, Moyo's coming out of prison in 6 weeks. And the tears just rolled down my face. When you make special friends like that, you never forget it. You know, it's a real man. It's somebody that will go with you through thick and thin. And I think it was the 21st of October last year, Moyo walked out a free man. So yeah, I keep in touch with him. And then I was in Centurion 2 years ago, Ron. This is amazing. And there's 50 million people in South Africa that we know of. And I was going to a meeting at Fishmongers, and I arrived a little bit late. So I jumped out the car, and the car got standing. So I said, Brew, where's Fishmongers? And look, it's Masango. And I'd been with them for 4.5 years in Chikurubi Max. No. We hugged each other, jumping, hey, Brew, all that. I went to my meeting, came back, and we chatted everything, gave him some money, and yeah, we keep in touch, and I send him money now and again. So yeah, there's some special guys that you know, when you share that time together on, you grow and you form something that is very special. Yeah.
Rusty, what was the most significant change you noticed coming out after being away for so long, and what are you doing today? So what changes have you seen, and how's that affected you? What are you doing today?
Okay, Ron, the amazing thing, when you come out of prison after being away for 10 years, it's not the trees and streets and houses that change, it's the people. And it's very clear, those who got off their butts and did something with their lives, and it was during the tough times and some dollar crash, those that sat at the bar drinking their sorrows away. And that made me realize, and I started some sort of hectic campaigns to try and get guys to appreciate health. When you watch 2,200 people die, you suddenly become very health conscious. And I said to some guys hadn't changed. Other guys were just like, what happened, chum? So, a lot of guys, I said to them, what have you done or where are you going? You don't have long. Some guys had died, that were younger than me. And it was from ill health. So for me, that was the biggest thing. And then, of course, the technology and social media, I remember my sister, when I went to a medium security prison, the guards are very friendly and they always want to pay her for them to give me something and that. So she came to me giving me food one day and she said, do you want an iPod? So I said, oh, what's an iPod? She said, it's a thing that plays music. So I said, well, how big is it? So she indicated this small flat little thing. So I said, well, how many songs does it play? She said, oh, about 1,000. I said, no way. So where do you put all the CDs? That's how much technology had changed. I never knew what an iPod was. And for me, the concept of playing 1,000 songs from a little thing like that was just like, how do you do that, So those, technology generally, trying to catch up on the computer stuff now from when I went away was just mind-blowing. And what I'm doing today, Ron, so I've been in the safari industry since '82. And I carried on with that after prison, working for guys that used to work for me. It was really hard, trying to pick up the pieces where you used to buy all the rounds in the bar, and now they're buying you. You can't offer a thing. You're just like right at the bottom of the pack. And I was telling my story around the fire and on safari one day, and one guy offered to sponsor me to become a motivational speaker. And he said, your story needs to be told, and this is a calling. So I thought, okay. I wasn't ever anyone that went on stage. But he flew me out to Joburg, and I met with digital people, put a PowerPoint together and a speech. And that was in 2016, or end of 2015. Beginning of 2016, I started motivational speaking, and I talked to Old Mutual, Vodacom, at Sun City, all over. Went to Singapore last year. So
Totally change,
completely, and it's therapeutic for me as well, Ron. It's hard to. And I wrote a book, it's Beating Chains, and it's very hard to fit 10 years in a book. But my talk is probably about 5% of what I went through. The rest is in there, and if anyone's interested, it's on my website, www.beatingchains.com. And so far, the feedback from this book has been unimaginable. It's really changed lives. And it took a long time to write. And I've had 4 movie offers for my story. And Ron, it's what I went through. If I hadn't lived it and could show you and explain to you, you would say, no, like a movie, they made that up. Because it was just so bizarre, so far out of the norm. And then I do master classes on the lessons I learned in prison, and I'll catch up with that, and I'll give you some of that. And then some intervention talks where you make people write down, like forgiveness issues or gratitude issues or how your life is today and how you'd like it to be. And then we're starting life coaching courses, my wife and I and Steven Feltman. So that's very exciting, yeah. And then I've sold 2,000 of these books, by the way, and I'm not in any bookshop. I don't know if you've ever written a book, Ron, but if you take it to a bookshop, they want 50%. You go through a distributor that wants his share. You pay for the book, which is 30%. So you end up with like 5%. So I thought, 10 years, I'll write the story, self-publish, and you want to give me peanuts. So I just sell off my website, and it's going like crazy.
Fantastic.
But then I'm also involved in field guide training courses in Zimbabwe. So it's part of the FOGAZA training courses, Field Guards Association of Southern Africa. And we have 5 destinations where we train people from all over the world about everything to do with nature. So that's from soils, grasses, trees, birds, scorpions, chameleons, the stars, the weather, animals, fish, everything. And even I'm learning so much about that. I've been in the game 37 years, and it's just so amazing. So that's another. I'm only a small shareholder, but the MD of that company in Zim. So I run it off my phone. It's technology these days. So that's what I'm doing now, Ron. Yeah.
Awesome, Rusty. And Rusty, what were the most important life lessons you learned from your experience?
So number one is the power of positive thinking. Now, Ron, we all carry so much in our heads that hurt us. And if you can overcome that, because the past only exists in your head, it can only come to life if you let it. And to remain positive all the time, and I've always been a positive guy, before prison even. So I'd take on, bought a 40,000 acre ranch and 800 head of cattle, all on credit, when I was young. And so I was always somebody that put the ship on the water and then we'll drive it. Don't worry about it. And I've always taken it on. And it always came right. And I always believed it's hard work. If you're prepared to work like crazy and you're positive about that, it'll work. And they've proved that positive thinking in a positive environment is it's good for your health. The way your cells are created is by your positive attitude. So for me, the most important thing was staying positive in prison. And no matter what, I was going home now. If you told me in year 1 that you're going home in 2 years' time, I'd said never. I could live with 5 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. Anything past that was too painful. Yeah. I'm going home. And it stayed like that for 10 years. Because whatever you think on the negative, like thinking of, I was engaged to be married at the time, like my fiance with another guy, or the guys on a Las Vegas trip where we did all our conventions, or on a fishing trip, it hurt, pain in your tummy. So you block that. You self-counsel yourself on what to think and what not to think. And I had this beautiful fantasy girlfriend called Cherie, and we'd fly all over the world in our private jet and catch wallet in Mexico. I created this beautiful world I could go into, and that was my way of of dealing with it, just to remain happy, some thinking that made me feel good. Yeah. And I think whether it's a fantasy or not, it helps you physically. Yeah. Because finding happiness in even the smallest things that happen in prison kept me healthy. Those who couldn't died. Yeah. And life in prison or in Las Vegas is still just life. Yes. It's what you make of it, no matter where you are. Yeah. I had everything I could ever wish for, and in moments it was all gone. So I think, and the other big thing was to be able to find positives in all the negatives going on around me brought hope. And I think hope was a massive part of my getting through there with a normal mind as well. Because like I said, if you're always believing that something's going to happen, it will happen. You're going to go home. They're not going to kill you in there. You just stay positive and deal with it all emotionally. It's easy to say, but at the time it was hell. Yeah. And then forgiveness was a massive thing for me, Ron. I was angry. When you go in there for nothing, that anger, hatred, bitterness, revenge. I'd planned a lot of things for a lot of guys. I was angry. But it was eating me up every day. And after about a year, I realized that I was carrying all that in my head. All those that I had wished all this evilness on had forgotten about me long ago. And the single biggest lesson I learned in prison was forgiveness. And I now know what Nelson Mandela meant by forgiveness. And I think you've got to be pushed to that level to forgive. Yep. And it was like a huge weight off my shoulders. And I remember walking in that exercise yard after about a year, and I looked up, and I tested my faith hard going to prison. I prayed big time in the courtroom, and I still went to prison. So I said, oh, where were you, But I looked up that day, and I said, God, take care of them, and let me get through this road that's been put in front of me. And I promise you, Ron, it was like a switch. I don't know how to explain it. It was not gradual. It was like, okay, they've gone. Don't deal with them anymore. The Lord's taking care of that. What goes around comes around. They'll get to that reserve. And once I'd have forgiven them wholeheartedly, my life in prison changed. And it was in one day, like in 5 minutes. It was amazing. So forgiveness, and everyone has forgiveness issues, Ron. You know, I had to say to you, Ron, just write down everything that, when you think about it, it annoys you. You know, even for yourself, not visiting your mom enough before she died, or whatever it is. People that have taken money from you, your wife cheated on you, whatever it is. There's a lot of things that we carry that drain us, and we don't even know it. And I think that it inhibits your potential when you don't let go of that stuff. So forgiveness was massive. It was unbelievable. I think the next one, Ron, is gratitude, where we all want too much in our lives, concentrating on what we haven't got, instead of being grateful for what we have. And for me, giving thanks every day goes a long way. For my health, a beautiful family, running water, a soft bed, and so on. And when there's no food, no water, and people are dying all around you, you become grateful for the fact that you're still breathing. And another day is a blessing. And when you lie in a cell with 78 other people, and your breath is not even your own, gratitude suddenly has a different meaning altogether. Yeah, so gratitude for me, Ron, was massive. It was, you know, now I don't think about it. It's not all about me and my empire and my money and me. It's about making a difference. I have a purpose now. And to help other people. You know, we're born givers and we're born lovers. And I think we lose that in all the wars and differences between each other. And I think it's a big lesson for people to understand that we're all equal. You know, when you have little kids, there's no color, there's no nothing, you're all the same. And we've lost that, you know. So gratitude for me was massive. And then people don't appreciate freedom. I wish I could explain to you the beautiful bubbly feeling I felt when I walked out those prison gates to freedom after 10 years of hell. It was unbelievable. And people that don't appreciate freedom. Freedom is not just not being in prison. Freedom is the ability to make a choice and act on it. Freedom is letting go of what you can't control. Freedom brings forgiveness. Freedom is being free from negativity. Freedom brings health. If you can be free in all areas of your life, then you'll reach your full potential. And if you can find forgiveness, be grateful about what you have, what you've achieved, and who you are, you will find true freedom and your full potential. And I think that's the big message for people, is to find true freedom. And then hope was a huge thing. But Ron, we all love to live in our comfort zones. And when pushed so far out of it, you have to dig really deep to find solutions to get through that. And you grow. You learn things others never have to, as long as you can take the good and leave the horrors behind. So I think I've learned so much about myself. You know, they always say these ups and downs build character. And it does. It teaches you about people that have suffered, people that have died in front of you. We're all the same. We all feel that same stuff. Because you've got tons of money and you fly your own aircraft and you're big time, doesn't mean you don't, you know, no one else feels pain. It's all the same. So it's a big lesson for people to understand that, you know. And appreciating the everyday little things in life. I remember on the farm, when I was transferred there, sitting around an open fire on old logs and bleached cattle skulls, chatting with old Ndebele inmates, taking me back to what I loved so dearly as a child. And I remember the beauty of the sunset and the dancing flames and the tranquil call of a nightjar, the bright stars and the moon, which I hadn't seen for 8.5 years. And now I appreciate the everyday little things in life, like a soft bed, a hot bath, the sip of a good wine, or a spontaneous cuddle from a loved one. Because those are the things you miss most when you have it all taken away. So people need to appreciate the everyday things in life. They are so important. And like I said, we imprison ourselves too much. You know, when I came out, it was one of the big things I realized that so many people make their own prison. how they get stressed over the most ridiculous things. I'm thinking, you're still free. You know, someone said to me the other day something about a car, and I just said to him, you know what a privilege it was for me to drive a car after prison. Now, it's small things, Ron. Yeah, just smelling the air, and I mean, you don't have any of that. You can't even see any color. I mean, it's tough. So there were a lot of lessons, Ron. I could go on, but in a nutshell, yeah.
You said to me the other day that when you got into prison on night one, you lay down and you felt a sense of, I think you might have said, relief from not being at your work, at your business. Can you share a bit of that with us?
Yeah, because it was profound for me. So when I went to prison, I was running 5 of my own companies. And remember, I built everything myself. I never had folks. I lost my dad when I was 12, so everything was self-made. So I took on so much. And I remember lying on the floor in the prison in that first night, packed like sardines, bitten by lice, everything. And I lay there and I thought, sure, this is not too bad. They can have all that. There's nothing I can do about it. And the relief of the pressure was unreal. And I never forget saying to myself then, I will never again put that pressure onto myself.
Have you been able to keep to that?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
Ron, I was working so hard, I never even put family time for holidays, like planning 2 weeks in Mozambique or wherever. It was just work. I was just, and I think a lot of us are like that, where you don't make enough time for the kids and the family and everything. So, and I was talking to Brett Archibald, the guy who fell overboard, I've forgotten where it was, and he spent 29 hours in the ocean. And he said the exact same thing. He said when he was in there, because he was a big businessman, and he said, if I get out of here, I'm never again taking on that pressure. Yeah. So we put ourselves under too much, Ron, and we lose perspective of life.
Yeah.
And
you related something else. You said when you came out, some people had passed. I think about guys like Patrick Mann, who comes to mind.
Yeah.
But then others who may have not to use the word wallowed, but they stayed in the situation and maybe didn't make it better. And you might find that the 10 years or so that you were away, they had not progressed their own lives. They were in some form of prison themselves.
Absolutely.
They had the freedom, but were trapped in another sense.
Yeah. You know, how many people, when I do talks here from Zim, and they cannot forgive, they are still angry. And they get angry with me because I forgive. I said, how can you forgive them? You kill them all. I'm going,
because it's a burden on you, I guess.
Well, but that's all behind you. You know, I've got a beautiful future ahead of me. Why must I waste? They've taken 10 years of my life. All my companies went broke. I don't give them one more second of my thoughts anymore. That's all behind me. It can't benefit me in any way. So why go back? Go forward.
And Rusty, what about appreciating those small things? When you were talking, I wanted to ask, do you remember that head hitting that pillow the first night? That's something you got to remember forever. Is it as humans, do we stop appreciating, or is this just now inherent in you? Is it intrinsic?
No,
now?
You don't stop.
You don't stop.
Yeah,
right?
almost every day when I stand in a shower, I just close my eyes and, this is nice. Yeah, you don't ever forget. And then
that pillow was good, eh?
No, the pillow is still good.
You know, something else that struck me when you were talking, I think about South Africa.
Yeah.
And the adversity of apartheid and the road that it walked. And then you think of Namibia. Namibia is a beautiful place, but through this adversity that South Africa went through, it allowed a platform for greatness. Yeah. And, you know, a tough question to ask you, but are there parts of you that have been unlocked through this adversity? Are there, it's I cringe to say, is there benefit to the adversity, or is there an upliftment on the other side of coming out of what you went through?
Absolutely, Ron. I'm a very different person to when I went in there. Because I was so self-centered. And now, I never had a purpose before. My purpose was just making my own empire and growing and growing. We never seem to have enough. And when you wish I'd had that, and you get it, and then you want another one, more and more, and a bigger bank account, and more companies. And it's just, I think it's in us. But I think that you have to find balance. And I think that's a very big word in living today. and we don't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm very different in that respect, in the adversity that I went through. I've come out now. I understand empathy. I listen more, and I always listen to people, but sometimes when it's not something that really affects you, you don't really listen to it. But think about their lives too. And the ironic thing, like in South Africa now, is there's a lot of racial tension, even in America. But 90% of that racial tension is from guys that were born after apartheid. And America's got it, and theirs was 200 years ago. So, we need to...
Maybe that's another prison in the mind
exactly.
when people get
No,
stuck
exactly,
in that.
Ron.
Yeah.
And one of my big missions, and I'm working on it now, is to try and change the mindset of the youth.
Yeah.
And we're born lovers, we wired that way. So, and givers. So, you get more from giving than loving, than receiving.
Yeah.
So give more and love more,
I think that nation building is important, where we realize as one we could succeed as a country.
Yeah.
And divided, it's unlikely.
Yeah.
Rusty, what is Zimbabwe to you today?
I love it, Ron. It's in my blood, yeah. It's such a rich country. It's got a incredibly peace-loving tribes and people. They've been through hell, but we don't have the bitterness and anger that you do in other countries, I'm finding. And it's full of wealth with all the minerals and platinum, gold, and diamonds. And I think that I believe our president is in the right place and the right person to make a difference. And my thinking on that is that if there was someone else put in power, there would be a bloodbath. There won't. There's too many generals and people still in the know that won't let go. They've made too much money to have any other way. And they stepped out of line after the election. They just shot a few. So unfortunately, you've got to let that era move on, because there's some very powerful, smart guys that are ready to come. But you've got to let the old horses...
So you've got hope. You've got hope.
100%. 100%. I've still got a beautiful home there. My daughter's there with my grandchildren. And Zim is still fantastic. Yeah.
No, Rusty, that's absolutely magic. I think we're going to save the rest for the book.
Okay, bud.
And share that. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ron.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, bud. Thank you.